Hi, I'm Andy Schlesinger, president of Andrew Chevrolet. It's been said that word of mouth is the best form of advertising. With that in mind, I invite you to listen to what our customers have to say.
Andrews has always had a large selections of many types of vehicles.
Andrew is the only dealership for me.
We've bought 2 cars for our daughter here in the past, and when it's time to purchase her own car, Andrew will be the only dealer for her too.
Andrew Chevrolet, 15th and Silver Spring, where customer service is not a department, but our passion.
And now back to Focus on Diversity with Troy Shaw.
And welcome back to the program. Let's continue our discussion. We got flourishing supremacy activity. Last year, huge street protests made millions of immigrants more visible and powerful, but they also seem to have revived a hateful counterforce, white supremacists. A new report from the Anti-Defamation League says that groups linked to the KKK and neo-Nazis have grown significantly more active since those, can we call those protests, Robert? I mean, weren't there protests to get America to recognize immigrants who are considered to be illegal, but still?
Well, people will call them protests. We were more looking at the term of an awakening, making aware of the issues that are impacting families and how these issues could impact the country as a whole negatively.
But white supremacists actually have gained more in strength and power
sure.
since these things have gone on.
And they gained more in strength and power because you had a bunch of knucklehead politicians out there trying to use the issue to stimulate prejudices, advertising their campaign so that they can get elected, and putting all the blame of the social ills and the economic ills of their areas on the backs of the immigrant population. Okay. And that has helped to fuel this rise in hate and these Nazis and these Ku Klux Klan members who look at these politicians and listen to people like Senator Grothman here in West Bend, Wisconsin, who make asinine statements about the very populations that these guys are after.
Now, I'm not going to agree with the methods of these particular organizations at all. But what we have going on here, though, is basically a lot of people saying that these illegal immigrants are trying to fight for rights that they don't legitimately have. Chris, what are your thoughts?
And you have a lot of people making those comments. You have a lot of people making the counter comment, just as Mr. Miranda did. You see where the hate groups and the KKKs, they're growing that strength because they are very prejudicial in regards to their thought processes as well. They just see one piece of that issue and they glam onto it, and they throw that out there for other people to glam onto, such as the politicians were making during their election campaigns. They're not focusing on the whole overall issue in regards to individuals who are coming over here, just like my grandparents did, to come for a better life. Yeah, there are certain ways in regards to doing that, in regards to documentation and paperwork and things like that, that people do. Some don't, some do. Yet they preach hate. And that right there is the thing that you got to focus on. They're preaching a method and a style of hate towards individuals which shouldn't be tolerated. No,
Eugene, the African American population has shown to a degree their disdain to a degree on the focal point of the Hispanic population that are trying to say that illegal immigration should flourish. I mean, those have been some issues that we have discussed periodically throughout the year. What are your thoughts on some of those discussions?
Well, I think there are people trying to drive a wedge between African Americans and Latino Americans, mainly over the illegal immigration movement, which I think is wrongly categorized as any kind of hate movement, because think about it, most reasonable people would never see themselves linked with the Ku Klux Klan or the Nazi Party. The problem, and Robert suggested it, the political problem with the way politicians are addressing this is that they stand they're dangerously close to calling people who oppose different views hate groups. And I just don't think that's the way most Americans, the reason we call the Nazis and the Ku Klux Klan extremist groups, because a lot of people see them as extremists. Nobody really wants to sign on to them. I don't necessarily buy that African Americans and Latino Americans are as opposed as the media in particular paints it sometime, although I do acknowledge there are these core issues, mainly economic issues and job issues, that can be used to drive us apart if we don't pay attention to what's happening in the public debate and the public discussion of these issues.
Now we're going to move on to our next subject matter right here, because apparently, gentlemen, they want their money back. Yes, indeed. In the chaotic period after two deadly hurricanes, Hurricane Katrina and Hurricane Rita, hit the Gulf Coast in 2005, the government issued more than $84.5 million to more than 10,000 households. But census figures show that fewer than 8,000 homes existed at that time. Now the government wants that money back, and they're prosecuting people in regards to that. Now, Eugene, I just left off with you a few moments ago. I mean, we're talking about people who were going on the internet saying that they had homes in certain zip codes that didn't exist, and now they're sitting back either going to jail or paying back that money. What do you think?
I just think it just shows what a disaster. The real disaster was the flooding of the levees and Hurricane Katrina. The other disaster was FEMA, and the way FEMA didn't step up to the plate was probably its paramount challenge since its inception. And the people who want to keep apologizing for all the not even snafus we're hearing about outright incompetence in a lot of cases. Mm-hmm. And this story is just one slice of a whole group of stories showing how the people in charge of distributing money and providing any sort of help for this natural disaster just dropped the ball. So it's hard for me not to almost look at it sort of humorously, even though I understand it's deadly serious stuff.
But you have to sit back and give FEMA some kind of credit. I mean, if they did not respond in the rapid fashion that they did, they were already called racist based on their connection with Bush. If they didn't sit back and give that money right away, Chris, then again, I mean, they were in a no-win situation.
Oh, absolutely. They were in a no-win situation. They were just they were handing out hand over fist just to make sure that people were getting something and come back and deal with the repercussions of that later. Well, later is now. Now you got to deal with the checkbook. There is fraud. There is a good deal of fraud that's being out there. And they will prosecute those individuals that are out there, and they're starting to. Mm-hmm. But yes, if FEMA wouldn't have started throwing out those Visa cards left and right to anybody that asked for it, there would have been an even larger uproar.
Robert, we're getting the last word on this. What do you think about what we're talking about? I mean, we're talking about
this is a lesson to never hire a guy who only raises horses to run a major national agency.
And that is that. And when we come back, we'll have our closing comments. Stay with Focus on Diversity. We'll be right back. Travel accommodations provided by Midwest Airlines, the official airline for Focus on Diversity.